The simulation hypothesis. Imagine for a moment that everything around you, the street you walk on, the voices of your loved ones, even the sky you see when you look up, is nothing more than a highly detailed virtual recreation. According to the simulation hypothesis, our reality could have been designed by a far more advanced civilization, or, surprisingly, by humanity itself in the distant future, when technology allows us to recreate virtual universes with an unimaginable level of detail. Though it sounds like the plot of a novel or science fiction film, this theory has been discussed in philosophical and scientific circles, sparking both wonder and skepticism. The foundation of this idea lies in the fact that, as technology advances, our ability to create realistic simulations increases. Today, for example, we have video games with stunning graphics, virtual realities that deceive our senses, and artificial intelligence applications that mimic human voices or behavior. If this trend continues, the day may come when it is possible to model entire universes with characters who have no suspicion of their simulated existence. This raises the question, if in the future someone succeeds in creating perfect simulations, why not consider the possibility that we are already living in one? To understand this better, let's think about the supposed glitches or flaws in reality. Many people have shared intriguing stories resembling errors in a computer game. Seeing the same person in two different places at the same time, perceiving a crack in the continuity of space, or experiencing déjà vu in moments that feel too precise. Although psychological or rational explanations exist for such experiences, the simulation hypothesis offers another possibility. What if, in reality, those moments are small interruptions in the code that sustains our world? One striking aspect of this theory is the difficulty of proving or disproving its validity. How could we tell if everything is programmed? If a system is perfect enough, its virtual creatures would never discover the existence of their programmers. However, for some, excessive coincidences, unexplained appearances, or the systematic repetition of certain events might be seen as clues that something doesn't fit within the natural order. Of course, all of this remains highly speculative, but it is fascinating to consider the possibility that the world we believe to be absolutely real might have the same consistency as a dream, albeit a very sophisticated one. To explore these ideas without alarm, it is helpful to maintain a calm tone, almost as if telling a bedtime story. Imagine that soft sense of wonder that fills us when we watch a beautiful sunset or hear a song that transports us to another place. That same wonder can accompany us if we dare to think about simulation. Gentle curiosity, without falling into fear, is the key to freely exploring the questions this theory raises. At certain moments, brief pauses for reflection might be useful. For instance, when mentioning flaws in reality, we can invite listeners to consider whether they have ever experienced something so strange that it made them doubt their surroundings. Have they ever felt that something happened twice in exactly the same way? Have they seen someone repeat a phrase with the same tone and gesture, as if stuck in a programmed loop? These stories, usually dismissed as mere coincidences, take on a different meaning if we imagine an underlying code that sometimes malfunctions. Rather than aiming for a definitive conclusion, the simulation hypothesis reminds us how little we truly know about the fundamental structure of reality. Throughout history, many philosophers, including Plato with his allegory of the cave, have questioned whether what we perceive is merely a reflection of something deeper and inaccessible. Now, with technological advances, it is natural for a modern version of that ancient doubt to emerge, and if everything were part of a simulation, discovering it would be nearly impossible. Perhaps the only way to recognize it is by finding evidence of something that does not obey the rules of the game, though it is difficult to specify what kind of proof to look for. This is why most people treat it as an entertaining intellectual exercise, and why not, an inspiring one. It places us in an active role. We can ask ourselves what part we play in this world, and whether, at some level, we also have the power to modify it. In conclusion, it is worth pondering one final thought. Could even this video be part of the program someone designed? Perhaps its content is meant to plant a seed of doubt in us, or maybe it is nothing more than human curiosity naturally manifesting itself. As in every great story, there is no clear answer. Instead, there is silence. That brief pause in which each of us decides whether the reality we inhabit is as real as we have always believed, or if, on the contrary, it might be just a fascinatingly convincing simulation. The eternal return. There is an ancient concept of time and the universe that suggests everything we experience repeats infinitely, as if each event were part of a great cycle that begins anew over and over again. This idea is known as the eternal return, and it has appeared in various philosophies throughout history. The foundation of this theory proposes that, at a certain point, the cosmos reorganizes itself and everything happens exactly as it did before. The same people, the same decisions, the same places. Consequently, one could say that we have already lived through everything we consider our present an infinite number of times. For some schools of thought, this concept reflects a cyclical vision of existence where nothing has a definitive beginning or end, but instead undergoes constant regeneration. Among the ancient Greeks, the notion emerged that when the universe is destroyed, it is reborn from its ashes, restarting the sequence of events, like someone rewinding the film of history and projecting it again without altering a single frame. If we pause to reflect, an almost inevitable question arises. What would it mean to relive all our actions, decisions, and emotions again and again? First, this presents several personal challenges. Experiencing every encounter, every joy, and every sorrow with the same intensity seems as wonderful as it is terrifying. On one hand, we would be reunited with cherished moments, those that made us feel most alive. On the other, the difficult times, mistakes, and grey days would also return. However, if there were truly no way to escape this cycle, every experience, no matter how small, would take on immense significance. The eternal return suggests that each gesture is far more meaningful than we dare to believe, for we would repeat it an infinite number of times. In this sense, there is a positive aspect that encourages us to appreciate everyday moments with greater awareness. Knowing that any given situation could repeat indefinitely might lead us to perceive the present differently. Instead of looking indifferently at a sunny afternoon or a reunion with a friend, we might think that this very moment will happen again as many times as possible, and for that reason, it deserves our full attention and gratitude right now. From this perspective, life becomes a continuous tribute to the idea that what we do matters, because we will do it again and again without end. To immerse oneself in this idea without falling into anxiety, it helps to maintain a gentle, almost whisper-like rhythm, like a bedtime story. Repeating phrases such as "everything returns," "we meet again," or "a cycle with no end" can create an almost hypnotic atmosphere, inviting listeners to surrender to the ebb and flow of a reality with no absolute beginning or final conclusion. Gradually, the mind becomes accustomed to the notion of a cosmic wheel spinning eternally, and contemplating it transforms into a kind of meditation that soothes the rush and worries of the day. This view of time contrasts sharply with the linear interpretation to which many of us are accustomed, where everything moves in a single direction and never repeats. That's why thinking about an unbreakable cycle can feel unsettling at first, but also comforting if we understand that each scene of our personal drama is not lost in oblivion, but returns to grant us another moment of life. Through this lens, the sensation of fleetingness fades, and in its place a feeling of continuity emerges, one that embraces our existence in an unusual way. Although there is no definitive proof that the universe truly functions this way, the idea of the eternal return serves as a stimulus to expand our perception of reality. Perhaps in one of these repetitions, the sequence of events shifts due to the existence of multiple realities, thus connecting with the theories of parallel universes. In that case, the return would not be identical, but would allow for variations, making the picture even more complex. However, at its core, it would still retain the essence of recurrence, the idea that nothing is lost, but that each event is reborn in another turn of the cycle. Before moving on to other theories, it is worth pausing for a moment to feel the effect this notion has on our minds. If everything were to happen again, would we live the same way each time, or would we try to change something with each turn? Perhaps these are impossible questions to answer, but they motivate us to cherish our present with the awareness that, in some way, this might not be the first nor the last time we are experiencing each moment. In the end, that blend of perplexity and wonder captures the essence of the eternal return as a profoundly enigmatic and at the same time peaceful theory, like the whisper of a wheel turning endlessly in the stillness of the night. The hollow Earth. For centuries, some have believed that our planet is not a solid mass of rock and metal, but instead conceals a vast inner space filled with mysteries and unknown creatures. This idea, popularly known as the hollow Earth theory, has sparked the imagination of explorers, writers, and dreamers alike. According to its proponents, there exist gigantic tunnels that penetrate the Earth's crust, leading to lost cities and underground civilizations that have never seen sunlight. Some legends claim these places are inhabited by beings who evolved separately from surface humanity, or even by survivors of ancient civilizations that chose to take refuge deep within the world. Myths about an underground realm date back to ancient times. Various traditions speak of secret passages leading to hidden worlds, places where the Earth's internal heat sustains life and where treasures beyond imagination are kept. In Tibetan tradition, for instance, there is the legend of Shambhala, a mystical kingdom concealed within inaccessible mountains, which some associate with underground regions. Similarly, Western literature references Agartha or Agarthi, a supposed network of subterranean tunnels and galleries stretching across the globe, connecting distant points such as the North and South Poles. These stories often include wise rulers who control unknown energies, libraries preserving knowledge from forgotten ages, and beings who have achieved far more peaceful ways of life than those found on the surface. Tales of adventurers who claim to have discovered entrances to these hidden domains are often told with an almost legendary tone. Certain explorers spoke of openings in mountain caves or polar regions that, after long journeys, led to a subterranean world illuminated by some kind of internal light source. In some accounts, strange creatures appeared, giant animals, glowing plants, and humans with unusual features. Though these stories sound like something out of a fantasy novel, they contribute to the aura of mystery surrounding the hollow Earth theory. The fact that they are presented as supposed testimonies from real travelers, rather than mere fables, fuels the intrigue of those who long to uncover hidden passageways beyond any official map. There are different versions of this theory. Some believers claim that the Earth contains a central sun that illuminates its vast interior, creating a temperate climate with abundant vegetation. Others propose that the underground world consists of multiple layers, like a multi-tiered cake, each level inhabited by unique life forms. In any case, the essence remains the same. The geography we learned in school reveals only a thin outer shell, while the true world lies just beneath, inaccessible to most. Official science, of course, asserts that the planet has a solid, or at least extremely dense core. However, those who advocate for the hollow Earth prefer to focus on ancient texts, rumors of secret expeditions, and unresolved mysteries that, in their view, remain unanswered. One of the most captivating aspects of this theory is its almost dreamlike quality. As it is told, it becomes difficult not to think of adventure novels where bold explorers descend into labyrinthine tunnels by torchlight, discovering traces of forgotten cultures. Unlike scientific analyses which focus on explaining Earth's geological structure and seismic evidence, this perspective prioritizes imagination and mythological narratives. It is as if it invites us, if only for a moment, to believe in a parallel world hidden beneath our feet, one filled with wonders and secrets beyond conventional reason. An inevitable question arises: could we be walking, day after day, above a hidden kingdom that remains beyond our sight? It is impossible to deny that something about this idea sparks curiosity. Perhaps when contemplating the vastness of nature, some might wonder whether beneath towering mountain ranges or deep within the ocean, a passage could exist leading to that legendary inner world. Even without conclusive proof, simply envisioning it immerses us in an atmosphere of mystery. Rather than instilling fear, it evokes a sense of wonder at the unknown. Of course, proving this theory's validity is difficult, if not impossible, by modern scientific standards. Geophysical measurements, volcanic studies, and known underground explorations offer no evidence that the Earth is hollow. Yet, neither have all of the planet's hidden corners been explored, nor has human discovery reached its limits. This leaves room for both doubt and imagination. The hollow Earth theory exists within this in-between space, a reminder that there will always be impossible ideas challenging what we consider undeniable. Perhaps it is precisely through these theories that we keep the flame of curiosity alive, always ready to delve into new stories that expand our vision of what is possible and what, perhaps, still awaits discovery. Boltzmann Brains. The central idea behind the concept of the Boltzmann brain may sound like something out of science fiction, yet it arises from real debates in physics and cosmology. In simple terms, it suggests that, given the vastness of the universe and the immeasurable passage of time, there could be a possibility, however improbable, that a self-aware brain might spontaneously emerge from the cosmic void. This brain, formed by particles and connections complex enough to generate sensations and thoughts, would contain implanted memories without ever having truly lived them, as if it suddenly awakened with the firm conviction of having existed forever. With no prior connections and no genuine past, this brain would perceive an entirely illusory world within itself. At first glance, this theory seems perplexing. How could a brain spontaneously emerge from the chaos of the universe? The answer, at least in hypothetical terms, is based on the idea that given enough time and an incalculable number of quantum or thermodynamic fluctuations, even the most improbable event could eventually occur. And if, by a whim of entropy, a brain were to appear with a fully formed set of false memories, it would believe it had lived an entire life with family, friends, and experiences, when in reality not even a second would have passed since its chance formation. This idea is as intriguing as it is unsettling. Imagining that one could be such a brain floating in the cosmic desert raises essential questions. How can I prove that my memories come from real events and are not mere products of chance? What evidence do I have that the world I perceive truly exists outside my mind? It directly challenges our sense of identity and continuity, suggesting that everything we consider our personal history might be nothing more than an instantaneous illusion with no roots in an actual past. However, engaging with these ideas does not have to lead to anxiety or distress. One can reflect on them with serenity, almost as if they were a modern fable that invites us to appreciate the simple fact of being aware and feeling. If we were indeed a Boltzmann brain with no real life trajectory, it would mean that every experience, no matter how mundane, holds something extraordinary. The revelation that we are perceiving, thinking, and feeling. Whether that perception is real or not, in the end, does not diminish the depth of the experience itself. One way to illustrate this theory, while maintaining a sense of calm, is to describe a fleeting moment when something comes to life. Imagine an absolute darkness suspended in the void of space where atoms drift without direction. Suddenly, through an improbable combination, particles arrange themselves into a structure capable of generating consciousness. That brain awakens, and the first thing it perceives is a collection of memories, a childhood in a certain place, friends, loves, triumphs, and failures, all imprinted as if they had unfolded over years. Yet nothing existed before this precise second. It is as if that personal history was instantly downloaded. To its own awareness, that mind is convinced it has lived for a long time, though in reality, it has just manifested in the universe. The most provocative aspect of this idea is that, from the perspective of consciousness, it would be impossible to distinguish between an existence built on genuine memories and one that emerged from a spontaneous flicker of randomness. In both cases, the subjective experience would feel equally real. This is one of the most compelling aspects of the hypothesis. It calls into question the trust we place in our memory and the apparent solidity of the world. When presenting these ideas, it is best to maintain a gentle, almost lulling tone, like telling a bedtime story that invites reflection rather than fear. The real question is not, should we worry about this, but rather, what does this way of thinking teach us? And one possible lesson is that consciousness itself is an extraordinary phenomenon, as fragile as it is complex. If a Boltzmann brain is, by definition, something extraordinarily rare, then we too are the result of astonishing combinations. Whether we live in a real cosmos or in a world simulated by our own neurons, perhaps after contemplating the possibility of being an isolated brain adrift in the vastness, it is worth taking a leap toward another theory that challenges the very nature of perception. If our experience could exist in a void with no foundation, what if everything around us were a sophisticated hologram? In this way, the Boltzmann brain hypothesis naturally connects with the idea that the universe itself might be a projection of information, and that we, mere spectators of this grand stage, might one day watch it all dissolve into nothingness. Solipsism. Some argue that the only absolutely unshakable certainty is that of one's own mental existence. This perspective, known as solipsism, asserts that nothing can be proven with the same solidity as the fact of thinking or feeling in the present moment. According to this view, everything we consider the external world could very well be a projection of the mind without truly existing beyond our internal processes. Neither the landscape seen through the window nor the family we interact with daily would be guaranteed in an absolute sense. They could ultimately be mere constructs arising from individual consciousness. A simple way to understand this idea is to ask the following question: how can I prove that other human beings have consciousness like mine? It may seem obvious that those around us feel and think, but solipsism invites deeper reflection. All the signs we take as evidence, words, expressed emotions, visible actions, could be mere appearances. The same imagination that allows us to dream entire scenes while we sleep could also be capable of creating people and places in waking life without there being an independent reality beyond our mind. And in that case, there would be no way to prove otherwise, since the arguments we use would emerge from the very same consciousness attempting to convince itself. Far from being a new idea, solipsism can be traced back to certain ancient philosophical traditions and has resurfaced repeatedly whenever the nature of perception or the certainty of knowledge is debated. It is not necessarily proposed as a practical truth. After all, living as if the world were a mere hallucination would make daily life almost unmanageable, but rather as a conceptual limit. It forces us to recognize just how much we rely on subjectivity to construct what we call reality. If everything existed solely in the mind, there would be no independent outside, and individual consciousness would be the creator of every scene, every laugh, every pain, and every moment. Although it may sound extreme, solipsism shares certain similarities with common experiences. For instance, in dreams, one can interact with people, explore landscapes, and feel emotions with full intensity without any of it occurring in the physical world. Upon waking, we realize that everything was an internal construction that vanished the moment we opened our eyes. Would it not be possible, the solipsist wonders, that waking life is simply a more complex and persistent dream from which we have yet to awaken? To approach this question calmly, it helps to adopt a serene tone, much like a nighttime story that invites introspection. Rather than inducing fear or radical skepticism, the idea can help us appreciate the wonder of consciousness itself. The fact that we feel, think, and perceive is already an astonishing phenomenon, regardless of whether it arises from a real external world or from a personal creation. The mere act of recognizing one's own existence, I exist, therefore something is happening in my mind, can be reassuring if embraced with a peaceful mindset. On the other hand, most people maintain the strong intuition that other beings do possess consciousness and that the universe does not depend solely on an individual mind. It is in this tension between everyday experience and the extreme proposition of solipsism that the most thought-provoking reflections emerge. By considering the most radical scenario, only my mind is real, we are forced to re-examine what we usually take for granted. Suddenly we appreciate with gratitude that social interactions, dialogue, and emotional bonds seem to have a foundation beyond our own minds. Yet, the solipsist's doubt lingers as a reminder that reality, ultimately, is something we perceive through subjectivity. One may wonder how these ideas integrate into ordinary life. To some extent, each individual is confined to their own perspective, unable to inhabit another person's mind. However, society functions on the trust that we share the same world. Solipsism, in its radical nature, highlights the limits of that trust but does not necessarily require us to discard it. Instead, it serves as an intellectual challenge. Are we truly certain that other minds exist, or do we assume it simply because it comforts us? Maintaining a slow, steady pace when discussing this topic allows the audience to absorb the possibility without distress. It becomes an exercise in contemplation, emphasizing the importance of the mind, consciousness, and subjective experience. After reflecting for a moment, it becomes clear that if everything exists solely within consciousness, nothing external can be fully guaranteed. Conversely, if we accept that an independent world exists, we are still dependent on subjectivity to perceive it. Before moving on to other theories, it is worth planting a seed of doubt. After all, if we cannot prove with total certainty the reality of others or the autonomy of the universe, what other forces or influences might be guiding our thoughts? This leads naturally to the next question. Could our perceptions be shaped by subliminal messages or even collective manipulations? If ultimately everything originates in the mind, the question then becomes, who or what is planting the ideas we take as truth? In this way, the door opens to other perspectives that, while they may seem conspiratorial, continue to revolve around the fundamental doubt about the nature of reality and consciousness. The holographic universe. The idea that the universe we inhabit might be a hologram sparks as much curiosity as it does wonder. According to this theory, all the information needed to describe what we perceive in 3 dimensions is actually encoded on a surface of just 2 dimensions. In other words, the 3-dimensionality we experience could be a projection derived from data inscribed on the limits of the universe, much like reality itself were the result of a vast and sophisticated projection system. To understand this in a simple way, one can draw an analogy to security cards or holographic images that, when tilted, display depth illusions. Although these holograms seem to have volume and dimensions, they are actually based on a flat surface that contains the necessary visual data to generate such an effect. When light interacts with the hologram, our perception registers something that appears 3-dimensional, even though it is not in the conventional sense. Similarly, the holographic universe hypothesis suggests that what we perceive as deep space and distant objects with length, width, and height might actually be manifestations of 2-dimensional data stored at the edges of the cosmos. At first glance, it is bewildering to imagine that atoms, galaxies, and even our own actions might be stored on a boundary rather than occurring in real space as we believe. However, some theoretical physicists have found mathematical indications that support this possibility, at least conceptually. This does not mean that everything is false or unreal, but rather that the underlying structure of reality might be different from what our senses suggest. Just as a holographic image displays an apparent depth, our universe could present distances, sizes, and shapes that, in essence, originate from information contained on a different plane. To clarify this idea, it helps to think of illusions that create depth. A simple example is 3D cinema. When we wear special glasses, we perceive a sense of depth, as if objects were emerging from the screen. However, we know that everything remains on a flat surface, and that the illusion results from the way technology and our brains process visual input. The holographic universe theory takes this concept to a cosmic scale, proposing that on an immense level, something similar occurs. The events we believe are unfolding in real space may in fact have a 2-dimensional foundation hidden from our direct perception. Reflecting on this can generate a mixture of intrigue and confusion. Yet, there is a way to approach it without feeling overwhelmed. By closing our eyes and considering how, ultimately, everything we see and hear is experienced within the mind, a space with no clear physical size. Just as a film projector casts images onto a screen, our minds project the sensations and thoughts that we call the world. In that moment of stillness, it becomes almost natural to ask, to what extent is the 3rd dimension an objective property of reality, rather than a representation we construct, or one that is, in some way, imposed upon us? A brief pause can allow each person to ask themselves this question internally. By stepping away from the overwhelming flow of daily information and taking a moment of silence, the idea of a holographic universe feels less like a purely intellectual puzzle and more like an invitation to perceive reality with fresh eyes. If everything were a perfectly coordinated projection, the distinctions between inside and outside could dissolve, reinforcing the notion that our lived experience is, to a great extent, shaped by what is processed in our consciousness. Naturally, the next question follows. If reality is structured like a holographic projection, how do we know our senses are not deceiving us entirely? Or, put another way, does anything exist beyond the projected information and the mind that perceives it? Within the framework of this theory, the only certainty would be that something, a cosmic surface, a field of data, a vast, universal code, sustains and expresses everything we consider to be real. This mystery points toward an even more radical debate about consciousness. If reality is a projection, then perhaps the only thing we truly possess with certainty is the very mind that registers these phenomena. This idea connects almost directly with the notion of solipsism, which questions the independent existence of the external world. What if only the mind is real? What if everything else is merely an appearance projected for our understanding? These questions do not seek to close the discussion with a definitive answer, but rather to stimulate curiosity while preparing us for the next exploration. The possibility that ultimately the only real thing may be our very own consciousness. Hidden messages and mind control. Over time, theories have emerged suggesting that subliminal messages are embedded in music, advertising, and film. Messages capable of influencing people without their conscious awareness. From this perspective, a simple song playing on the radio could contain hidden cues or commands designed to affect our emotions or thoughts. Similarly, an apparently harmless advertisement might include concealed words or blurred images that subtly encourage us to consume a product without realizing it. While at first glance these ideas may seem far-fetched, many claim to have discovered examples of such messages in various forms of media. One of the most discussed cases involves playing songs in reverse. Numerous stories circulate about musical tracks that, when played backward, supposedly reveal eerie phrases or secret invocations. Some say certain bands intentionally placed cryptic clues in their records, while others have been accused of unknowingly transmitting religious or even satanic messages. Regardless of their truth, the simple act of reversing a recording adds an air of mystery that piques the curiosity of those drawn to the unusual. In the realm of animation, curious symbols have also been spotted in cartoons, particularly in fast-moving scenes or elements that appear almost imperceptibly. Some claim to have found small icons embedded in backgrounds, repeated numbers suggesting hidden meanings, or secondary characters making strange gestures for a brief instant. Often these details may simply be inside jokes from the production team or nods for dedicated fans, yet some believe they are part of a deliberate effort to familiarize audiences with certain ideas. Another branch of this theory focuses on album covers and movie posters that allegedly contain unsettling details, shadowy figures lurking in dark corners, semi-hidden letters forming forbidden words, or visual compositions that seem to reference secret societies. A well-known example is the supposed obsession some bands have with occult symbolism, leading to a wide range of interpretations. Some see it as nothing more than a marketing strategy, others view it as a way to generate controversy, and some are convinced there is an intentional effort to condition those who observe these symbols. In any case, it is interesting to explore these topics without jumping to conclusions. Many of these hidden messages may simply be coincidences or playful elements inserted as a joke. On the other hand, certain creators might genuinely aim to create subtle psychological effects to make their work more impactful. What matters most is to maintain a critical mindset while also keeping an open curiosity. For this reason, discussing these subjects should not be about delivering a final verdict, but rather an invitation to pay closer attention to the world of pop culture and entertainment. To enhance this reflection with the right atmosphere, it can be useful to slow the pace of speech, as if telling a story around a campfire at night. Instead of provoking fear, this tone encourages calm intrigue, painting a picture of a world where hidden codes might exist without suggesting that listeners should be alarmed. In fact, it can even be comforting to imagine that behind every song or commercial, there may be an additional layer of meaning, even if it is difficult to prove. One way to engage with this idea is to invite the audience to conduct a simple experiment. The next time they listen to their favorite song, they should pay close attention, noticing the nuances of the lyrics and any background sounds they may not have perceived before. Do they feel any particular influence? Does it seem like there's something more beyond the melody? Similarly, they could try analyzing advertisements with a more critical eye, questioning whether the colors, words, and symbols are designed to evoke specific emotions or desires that might go unnoticed at first glance. It is true that the human mind is predisposed to finding patterns, even where none exist, and that people sometimes see conspiracies where there are only coincidences. However, part of the magic of exploring unconventional theories lies in keeping our sense of wonder alive while maintaining a playful mindset. The idea that our behavior might be subtly shaped by messages we cannot consciously perceive opens the door to a deeper question: how much of our thoughts and preferences truly belong to us? Before closing this section, it is worth leaving a question in the air, one that many have pondered. Are we truly free in our thoughts, or are there influences operating beyond our awareness? Rather than seeking an absolute answer, this mystery can encourage us to pay closer attention to what we consume daily: music, movies, series, advertisements. In the end, the belief in subliminal messages serves as both an exercise in critical awareness and an invitation to immerse ourselves in a space that hovers between suspicion and fascination. The contagion of dreams. Across different cultures and spiritual traditions, there are beliefs suggesting that human beings are connected on a deep level beyond ordinary consciousness. This interconnection has been given many names, but one of the most well-known is the collective unconscious, a term popularized by Carl Jung. From this perspective, our minds do not operate in complete isolation. Rather, we share certain archetypes, symbols, and energies that, under specific conditions, may lead us to experience similar dreams or parallel dreamlike events. Although science has not definitively proven this phenomenon, many people claim to have experienced episodes that make them question the absolute separation between one dreamer and another. One of the most common accounts of this so-called dream contagion revolves around stories of family members or friends who, for no apparent reason, dream of the exact same situation on the same night. It might be an encounter with a deceased loved one or a specific story that both recount the next day with astonishingly similar details. While this could be attributed to mere coincidence, some believe these episodes reveal a kind of psychic bridge linking our minds during sleep, allowing us to tune in to the experiences of others as if we were accessing a shared frequency. There are also reports of dream connections between couples or people who share a strong emotional bond. Some describe feeling a peculiar pull or vibration just before falling asleep, only to wake up and discover that the other person dreamed of the same places or characters, even if they spent the night miles apart. It is possible that the intensity of emotional ties facilitates this mental alignment, and that the collective unconscious acts as an underground river of symbols, one that we all contribute to and draw from, even if only momentarily. To explore this idea in a relaxed manner, it helps to adopt a meditative tone. The sensation of closing one's eyes and allowing the body to relax invites the imagination to move beyond the usual boundaries of reason. In this state of tranquility, it becomes easier to consider the possibility that our dreams are not as individual as we often assume. Perhaps as we sleep, our minds wander through shared territories where the energy of others intertwines with our own. This concept, aside from being poetic, encourages us to question the notion that we are completely isolated from one another. Some cultures have integrated this idea into their traditions and rituals. In certain indigenous communities, people practice dream sharing at dawn, using it as a way to weave together their nocturnal experiences and identify collective patterns or messages. To them, dreams are not merely personal occurrences, they are seen as reflections of the group's overall state and may carry omens or valuable revelations. These customs reinforce the idea of a transmission of dream images or ideas spreading at an unconscious level without the need for words. Even though modern society tends to view dreaming as a solitary experience, these stories invite us to consider the possibility of a shared dimension that often goes unnoticed. The notion of dreaming in unison with others also raises the question of how much we unknowingly influence each other. Perhaps the stress of a close friend seeps into our dreams, coloring them with shades of grey, or the joy of a loved one infuses our nighttime visions with bright landscapes. In this way, the boundary between our internal worlds blurs, allowing us to see that communication extends beyond spoken words in our waking life. From this perspective, the contagion of dreams would reflect a deeper truth. We exist in a constant exchange of emotions, ideas, and energies with those around us. Ultimately, it may not matter whether science confirms or completely dismisses these accounts. The very act of entertaining the possibility of a collective unconscious that facilitates dream contagion encourages us to be more mindful of our emotions and interactions. Perhaps we are more receptive than we realize, constantly absorbing and emitting signals that may slip into someone else's dreams. It is a notion that, rather than inducing fear, can evoke a sense of empathy and connection with those who share the same space of existence. There is something compelling about leaving the door open to the idea that, just as we share images and symbols in our dreams, we might also be reliving echoes of ancient experiences, perhaps even encounters with long-lost beings or phenomena beyond our current understanding. Who's to say that the memory of dreams does not retain traces of events forgotten by official history? Maybe during sleep, we recreate moments lived by past generations, or even recall visitations from entities or forces beyond this world. While this idea may sound fantastical, it invites us to reflect on the vastness of the mind, ours and everyone else's, an expansive space that may hold much more than random, fleeting images. In the next section, we will delve deeper into the possibility that ancient presences have been here before, influencing not only our historical chronicles, but perhaps the very fabric of our shared dreams. The ancient visitors. Throughout history, the idea has emerged that the great civilizations of the past may have received help from beings from another world, or even another dimension, to build their monumental structures. This theory, often referred to as the ancient astronauts or ancestral visitors hypothesis, suggests that our ancestors did not develop their architectural and astronomical knowledge solely through observation and trial and error. Instead, they may have received an external boost that accelerated their cultural evolution. Although mainstream science dismisses such claims due to a lack of solid evidence, the mystery and intrigue surrounding them have captivated millions, fueling debates that intertwine archaeology, anthropology, and ufology. One of the most frequently cited examples is the Egyptian pyramids, whose dimensions and precise alignments have puzzled both experts and enthusiasts. According to the ancient visitors theory, constructing such massive structures in such a distant past would have required advanced knowledge of mathematics, astronomy, and geodesy, knowledge that, supposedly, the Egyptians could not have developed on their own in such a short time. From there, it is only a bold step to suggest that their construction was aided by visitors from distant corners of the cosmos. Supporters of this theory point to architectural similarities between pyramids found on different continents, arguing that such coincidences cannot be purely accidental. Another frequently mentioned site is the Nazca Plateau in Peru, where enormous lines and geometric figures stretch across the Earth, only fully visible from the air. Conventional theories suggest they were created for ritual or symbolic purposes, perhaps as messages to the gods. However, proponents of extraterrestrial intervention see them as landing strips or guiding signals for spacecraft traveling between the stars. A similar argument is made for Pumapunku in Bolivia, an archaeological site with stonework so precisely cut and polished that even modern architects are impressed. The sense that such craftsmanship would have required extremely advanced tools and techniques leads some to speculate about the involvement of beings with access to unknown technologies. The appeal of these theories largely lies in the mysteries surrounding ancient civilizations. How could our ancestors have built such impressive structures without the machinery or scientific knowledge we have today? Why do so many cultures depict celestial beings or gods descending from the sky to instruct humanity? To those who support the ancient visitors hypothesis, the answer is clear. These deities were nothing more than explorers from other planets who earned the worship of early societies by demonstrating technological marvels beyond their comprehension. Meanwhile, skeptical archaeologists and scholars offer explanations based on human ingenuity, arguing that pre-Columbian, Egyptian, and other cultures possessed remarkable astronomical knowledge and sophisticated craftsmanship passed down through generations. Regardless of where one stands, the fascination with this alternate view of history is undeniable. To immerse oneself in these stories, it helps to adopt a calm, almost ceremonial tone, like recounting an ancient myth. Imagine for a moment a distant past in which humanity gazed at the skies in wonder, receiving visits from cosmic teachers who left their mark in massive stone blocks and giant geoglyphs, describing pyramids bathed in moonlight, ritual sacrifices, and processions of priests trying to decipher the secrets brought by those who came from the heavens, creates an atmosphere where the line between reality and legend begins to blur. This vision of ancestral contact with beings from other worlds is not about presenting definitive proof, but rather about indulging in the intrigue of connecting enigmatic clues that mainstream history has yet to fully clarify. Perhaps the truth is much simpler, explainable through human perseverance and careful astronomical observations. Or perhaps it is far more complex, involving interplanetary civilizations and lost knowledge. What matters is that the mystery remains, fueling the imagination of those who seek to understand where we come from and how we achieved such early technological feats. Finally, it is important to acknowledge that to this day, there is no irrefutable evidence proving the existence of these ancient visitors. However, it is equally fair to recognize that many unanswered questions remain in the history of civilization, and that each new theory, no matter how unconventional, encourages us to question what we take for granted. From this, a natural reflection emerges regarding our perception of time. If there was or wasn't foreign assistance in humanity's earliest constructions, what does that say about our linear view of history? Perhaps the next theory will challenge not only our understanding of the past, but also the very nature of time itself, which may not be as straightforward as we believe. Time does not exist. There is a fascinating proposition shared by certain philosophical and scientific perspectives, which suggests that time is nothing more than an illusion perceived by our minds. According to this view, past, present, and future do not unfold sequentially. Instead, everything might be happening simultaneously. The reason we experience an unbreakable sequence and recall past events as something that has already happened could simply be due to how our brain organizes experience to make it comprehensible. However, beneath the surface of this linear perception, the true nature of time might be far more complex. To begin contemplating this idea, it helps to visualize a simple mental image. Instead of imagining time as a river flowing in a single direction, we might think of it as a book. A book contains all its pages within the same volume. The first page does not disappear when we turn to the next, just as the ending is not created at the moment we read it. Every page exists at once, and the only reason we experience the story in a linear fashion is because we read it in order. Applied to human experience, this would mean that the pages of our lives are all available at the same time, even if our consciousness moves through them in sequence. This way of thinking about time is not easy to grasp. Our entire existence seems designed to move in only one direction. We are born, we grow, we age, and we take for granted that the future lies ahead while the past is left behind. However, certain interpretations of modern physics, such as aspects of relativity, suggest that the distinction between past, present, and future becomes blurred when looking at the universe as a whole. Relativity shows that the order of events can vary depending on the observer's perspective, already introducing the idea that time is not a universal constant, but a relative phenomenon. Building on this, some thinkers ask, what if time does not truly exist at all, but is merely a construct of our minds? An interesting exercise is to close your eyes and try to perceive the present moment without associating it with the passage of minutes. In that voluntary darkness, the now expands, and all we have are mental records of what we call the past, while we imagine the future. But is there any real proof that the moments ahead are not already happening on another level, simply waiting to be read? This perspective can be either comforting or unsettling, depending on one's approach. Some find peace in the idea that everything may, in some way, be complete from the start, while others feel a sense of vertigo at the thought that they do not control the flow of time. This raises the ultimate question: if the future already exists somewhere, are we free to choose our path, or is everything predetermined? Perhaps we have the ability to move through the pages in a personal order, or perhaps we are following a script in which nothing truly changes. Those who explore this idea with an open mind tend to prefer not to rush to conclusions. It is more comfortable to let doubt settle in, allowing the mind to explore the concept without restriction. After all, our everyday experience tells us that we make choices and feel the progression of ours. Reconciling that with the notion of a non-linear time requires a conceptual shift that does not happen overnight. In a gentle and soothing tone, one might entertain the possibility that the universe, as we perceive it, is merely a stage where time appears for the convenience of our minds, but does not reflect a fundamental property of reality. If we imagine that everything is happening simultaneously, the concept of change ceases to be a chronological event and instead becomes a shift in focus, like flipping from one page of the book to another, as if our consciousness were leaping between different sections of the story. If approached with calmness, this reflection can even be therapeutic, as it opens the door to the idea that we are not trapped in an unchangeable fate, but rather dancing between infinite possibilities. One of the moments when this idea becomes most apparent is in dreams, particularly lucid ones. In dreams, time behaves in strange and unpredictable ways. We might experience what feels like hours, only to wake up and realize that just a few minutes have passed in the real world. Is this not a small glimpse into the idea that, at least in our mental experience, the clock can dissolve and chronological order can break apart? In the next section, we will explore lucid dreaming and the possibility of altering the dream world at will, perhaps confirming, at least within the realm of sleep, that time is not as firm and rigid as we tend to believe when we wake. The realities of lucid dreaming. One of the most fascinating phenomena of the dream world is lucid dreaming, an experience in which we become aware that we are dreaming while still inside the dream. Unlike conventional dreams, where we passively observe the unfolding events, lucid dreams allow us to actively participate and shape the settings, characters, and even the physical rules of that inner universe. It is, in essence, a way of waking up within the dream itself, realizing its illusory nature and deciding what to do next. For many, it is a gateway to a limitless realm where reality bends to the dreamer's will. In practice, realizing that one is dreaming can happen spontaneously or through specific techniques. One common trigger for lucidity is encountering something impossible or absurd, checking a clock and seeing distorted digits, trying to turn on a light switch that refuses to work, or meeting a fantastical being. When this happens, the dreamer experiences a mental click and suddenly understands that they are not in the waking world. From there, they can choose to explore the environment, interact with the dream's elements, or simply observe with curiosity. Likewise, there are methods to induce lucid dreaming, such as keeping a dream journal, performing reality checks by examining one's hands, or paying attention to unusual details. With persistence and dedication, many people learn to enter a dream state where they can take control of the narrative. One of the most frequently cited reasons for enjoying lucid dreams is the exhilarating sense of absolute freedom they provide. Inside the dreamer can break the laws of nature, soaring through the sky, walking through walls, creating entire landscapes, or conversing with mythical beings. Some choose to use this experience for pure enjoyment, gliding over imagined cities, performing impossible feats, while others use it for introspection, confronting fears, rehearsing real-life situations, or exploring the depths of their subconscious. The creative potential is immense, as everything is subject to willpower and imagination. Beyond its recreational appeal, lucid dreaming also offers opportunities for emotional and psychological growth. Some people use it to overcome recurring nightmares, transforming distressing scenarios into safe and controlled spaces. Others aim to converse with figures that symbolize aspects of their own mind, seeking answers to personal questions. A simple example is someone dreaming of a dark, eerie place, and upon becoming lucid, deciding to summon an imaginary light or call upon a dream guide to illuminate the scene. This act often brings a deep sense of relief that extends into waking life. Encouraging listeners to recall their dreams and eventually wake up within them can be a relaxing and captivating exercise. A simple recommendation is to take a few moments before bed to mentally review the day's events, paying attention to details that might appear in dreams. Then, upon waking, jot down any remembered scenes in a dedicated notebook. Over time, dream memory sharpens, making it easier to recognize the signs that indicate one is dreaming. This process does not seek to force anything, but rather to open a door to an inner world full of surprises, one that can be experienced with the same ease and fluidity as sleep itself. Maintaining a soft and unhurried tone when describing the universe of lucid dreams helps convey the necessary calm to approach them without tension. After all, this adventure is best experienced when both body and mind are in harmony. The thought of creating magical moments in a personal, limitless space can serve as inspiration for those who wish to expand their dream horizons. Perhaps one night the sensation of flying will feel so vivid that upon waking one might wonder whether, at some level, the dream was just as real as waking life. At this point, a final question naturally arises, one that may well linger in the air. If in our dreams we can shape reality so effortlessly, how much influence do we truly have over what we consider the real world? This reflection does not seek to offer definitive answers, but instead leaves a door open to the possibility that matter and mind may be more intertwined than we assume. Perhaps all it takes is a few moments of silence to let this lingering thought settle. In that quiet space, each person may decide whether it is merely a fleeting fantasy or a glimpse of a deeper truth, and of course carry the question into their next dream exploration. Parallel universes and the multiverse. Imagining that our universe is not the only one, but merely one among an infinite number of realities, can be as astonishing as it is fascinating. The theory of parallel universes, or the multiverse, is based on the idea that multiple versions of the cosmos exist, each with its own unique characteristics. In some, physical constants might vary only slightly. In others, events could unfold in a completely different way. To understand it simply, one could picture the universe branching out every time we make a decision, no matter how small, giving rise to another world where we choose a different path. The mere possibility of countless realities raises a series of intriguing questions. For instance, if in one universe we decide to study music, what happens in another where we choose medicine? Could these versions of ourselves become so different that we would barely recognize them? Perhaps in a parallel reality you live in a distant city or have spoken another language since childhood, while in another you have become famous for a talent you never developed here. The concept might feel overwhelming, but it also sparks curiosity. How many branches of existence might have emerged from every choice we've ever made? Interestingly, science, particularly certain fields of theoretical physics, has explored this idea without completely dismissing it. Theories such as quantum mechanics suggest the possibility that reality splits into multiple timelines, each continuing on its own, though we remain aware of only one. While there is no conclusive evidence, the multiverse hypothesis has frequently made its way into popular culture and fiction, inspiring books, series, and films. You've likely seen stories where a character travels to another reality and finds a radically different world or encounters their other self, unrecognizable yet familiar. It's an appealing narrative device precisely because it makes us question how fragile the destiny we live truly is. At times, it can be fun to personally imagine what an alternative version of our own life would be like. Have you ever wondered where you would be if you had accepted that job opportunity you once declined, or if you had pursued a relationship that never materialized? Perhaps in a parallel universe, you are a tireless traveler capturing remote landscapes with your camera, while in another, you are a gifted painter. Entertaining these possibilities can be comforting as it expands our mental horizons. It reminds us that, in some way, many other stories could exist, even if we cannot see them directly. For someone seeking relaxation before sleep, the notion of infinite universes can have a soothing, almost hypnotic effect. It's like gazing at a starry sky and wondering if each star represents a world where things could be different. It allows the mind to drift peacefully, reminding us that everything we consider solid and definitive might, in another plane, happen in an entirely opposite way. Perhaps this vastness of reality helps us let go of daily worries, inviting us into a state of calm where imagination flows freely. Literature and cinema have often explored this theme. There are stories where a simple car accident completely alters a protagonist's future, leading them to a new life, while in another universe the accident never happens and events unfold differently. Other narratives feature characters encountering alternate versions of themselves, facing the eerie realization of seeing their own face with a different personality or background. These creative elements highlight how random the course of events can be, while also making it easy to dream of alternative realities. If you maintain a slow pace and steady breathing, thinking about these infinite branches can help you drift into sleep more lightly. You might visualize each decision you have made extending into a vast network of pathways, like a tree with countless branches stretching toward the horizon. Rather than causing anxiety, this image often brings peace, as it reminds us that life is not confined to a single fixed path, and that, in the diversity of universes, anything could be possible. Curiously, if we accept the idea of the multiverse, then there could be realities where even the most forbidden or improbable theories are completely normal. Perhaps in another universe, people already know with certainty that we live in a simulation, or maybe they have discovered that time does not exist as we understand it here. With this possibility in mind, one might ask, who's to say that our current certainties are not just the perspective of one universe among thousands? In this way, the mere proposal of multiple worlds takes on a nearly poetic quality, opening the door to explore even more ideas that, in this reality, might be considered marginal, but in another could very well be the norm.